My name is Ashley Bettis, and today I'll be talking about the psychological profile of Will Hunting from the film Good Will Hunting and how his background and environment connect to post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. Will Hunting is the protagonist of the film. He lives in South Boston in the 1990s and is from a working-class environment that values toughness, loyalty, and emotional restraint. Will works as a janitor at MIT even though he has extraordinary mathematical abilities. Growing up, he experienced severe physical abuse in foster care, which led to multiple arrests and court-mandated therapy and supervised work with a mathematics professor. In this culture, mental health is highly stigmatized and seeking help is often seen as a weakness. There's often a distrust towards courts, institutions, and professionals as well. Because of his background and environment, Will develops strong defense mechanisms. He minimizes his trauma, avoids emotional vulnerability, and uses anger and violence as socially acceptable outlets. Based on his behavior, Will can be clinically understood as showing symptoms consistent with PTSD. PTSD is a mental health condition that develops when an individual is exposed to traumatic experiences such as severe abuse, violence, or life-threatening events. A therapist would likely recognize his prior physical abuse and constant behaviors of avoidance, anger, and emotion numbing and diagnose him with PTSD. According to authors Patel and Hall, they acknowledge that PTSD is a well-recognized disorder across cultures but have varying symptoms, where some cultures demonstrate trauma through somatic systems which aren't listed in the DSM-5 criteria, while other cultures strictly follow the criteria listed in order for a diagnosis to be recognized. In our culture, people with PTSD are often unfairly labeled as dangerous, violent, or unstable, and the media frequently spreads these stereotypes. Will shows several major symptoms, including avoidance of trauma-related topics and persistent negative beliefs about himself. When placed in mandated therapy, Will constantly avoided talking about his abusive past and shrugged it off with humor or hostility. He repeatedly mocked and refused therapy, tearing Sean down when he became vulnerable and opened up about his childhood. Instead, Will walked out and avoided talking about himself and feelings tied to trauma. This directly reflects PTSD avoidance behaviors. In addition, Will possess persistent negative emotional states or beliefs about himself and emotional numbing. He has deep self-blame and believes he is unworthy of love or a better future. When Skylar asked him to go with her to California, he automatically thought she would find something she didn't like about him, showing his situated self-beliefs. He broke up with her when she got too close and told her he doesn't love her. However, a symptom that is not shown from PTSD is flashbacks, which is states of reliving the event and behaving as it is occurring at that moment. Even though he had emotional outbursts when he discussed his childhood abuse, the movie does not show episodic reliving or sensory flashback episodes. Research on childhood trauma show that beyond core PTSD symptoms, survivors frequently exhibit disturbances, predominantly ineffective and interpersonal self-regulatory capacities, such as difficulties with anxiety arousal, anger management, dissociative symptoms, and aggressive or socially avoidant behaviors. Will display several of these patterns, including anger outbursts, emotional withdrawal, and strong social avoidance when others attempt to form close relationships with him. The recommended treatment for someone like Will is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. CBT focuses on helping individuals recognize harmful thinking patterns and gradually comfort their trauma in a safe way. This type of therapy would help Will build healthier relationships and develop a stronger sense of self. It is appropriate because it allows him to see what the root of his issues are, and addressing them can help him move past rather than dictating his life. There are ethical concerns, however. It could possibly lead to destabilization while revisiting the abuse he suffered, which could increase the symptoms he currently suffers from. However, there are barriers to the treatment. Will's strong cultural beliefs about masculinity, his distrust of professionals, and his working class background make him resistant to therapy. The film does many things right in its portrayal of PTSD. It realistically shows avoidance, anger, shame, and emotional numbness, and it humanizes trauma survivors instead of portraying them as simply dangerous or broken. However, it oversimplifies recovery, making it seem like one emotional breakthrough can cure PTSD when, in reality, recovery is a long, ongoing process. Will Hunting is portrayed as a complex character whose emotional struggles are rooted in childhood trauma